Hello, welcome to this webinar on developing guiding principles for early stage community land trusts. So I'm going to introduce what guiding principles are and why it's important to have them. I'll focus a bit on organizational vision and talk about some strategies that you could use to develop one. And I'll illustrate all of this with some examples from existing community land trusts. So it's important to start by saying that not all community land trusts will have all of these things, all of these types of guiding principles, or they might call them different things. Some organizations have a purpose, vision, and values. Some have a mission, vision, strategies, but all of these are kind of broad ideas and commitments that are meant to guide your organization's work in the medium to long term. So starting with a vision is a statement of what the future would look like if your CLT achieved all of its goals. It's supposed to be aspirational and motivating. It's kind of a long-term vision. Your mission is a statement of your plan to realize your vision. So that usually includes why you exist, who you aim to serve, and how you'll serve them. Your purpose, this is one that kind of overlaps with mission. Some organizations will have one or the other. In theory, it summarizes your rationale, why your organization exists. And it's often intended for an internal audience, like board and staff, although not always. And your values are abstract ideas or principles that guide your organization's thinking and actions. Note that all of this is separate from your mission and charitable objects that you would develop for incorporation or for charitable status. There should be overlap, but the language is very specific when it comes to how you have to describe your objectives and your mission for these kind of legislated processes. But this will be a helpful start if you choose to pursue charitable status. So why take the time to develop a vision, to develop a mission? Often groups are keen to just kind of get right into the work, start working on something tangible, and they don't want to take the time to hammer out these things. But if you do, you'll find that it's time well spent. And that's because first, it can help you ensure clarity among your working group. It can help you spur ideas through the brainstorming process. It can also inspire people to get involved or to support you because they see your aspirations, they see the big vision that you're moving towards, and they're in support of it. It can help you clearly communicate the value of your organization to your funders or to other external stakeholders. And having these things in place can help you maintain your alignment to your core values and aims as you go forward, as you make decisions. So let's focus on a vision first, because it's often the starting point for early stage groups. So let's think about the who, the how, and the then what. So the who is who should be involved in developing your vision. So you want to ensure that future beneficiaries of your community land trust are involved at this point. Now, in a lot of cases, the people who the CLT is aiming to serve or develop housing for or hold land for, those are the people who are starting the community land trust. You are the target audience in that sense. But if you're not, then you want to make sure that those people are involved and you're getting their significant input from them on what they want to see for this community land trust. So this could be low-income households or another group. And I talk a bit more about this in the community organizing webinar. You might also want to engage with local community organizations and community leaders. They won't necessarily be the ones writing the vision, but they might be able to help shape it and give you an understanding of what's already out there and what gap your CLT might be filling. Now, how you do it, it's common to start with some kind of brainstorming exercise to get a lot of ideas out there in kind of a semi-structured way. This could be a workshop or a retreat where people are dedicating time and energy to thinking through this kind of issue. When you have some ideas, then you can draft a vision and use that as a starting point for feedback, including from some of those groups I mentioned. And then you can go back and refine and finalize your vision. It can vary in how long it takes based on what else is being included in this process. If you're doing this as part of a strategic plan or just as a standalone, first activity. But a lot of it can be done just over, a weekend retreat or over the course of a workshop with some refining and feedback afterwards. And then what? You don't just write this and leave it forever. You need to return to it. You need to use your vision to attract volunteers, supporters, attract funding, use it in grant applications. You can create a one-pager on what your CLT is and aims to do, including your vision. You can talk about it in public events. It's important to return to your vision when you're making decisions to ensure that your decisions are aligned with that vision. Think about, is this project that we're considering taking on going to get us closer to achieving that aspirational vision? And if not, maybe don't do it, or think about, is your vision a good fit? And on that point, it's important to return to your vision in a few years to see if it still fits. Now, your vision should be, it's not a short-term thing. It's looking way into the future. So it shouldn't be just temporary. But you might come back to it and think, our organization has changed. It doesn't really make sense anymore. Or it doesn't fit with what we're doing. And if that's the case, then you have to have some tough internal conversations about whether it's more appropriate to adjust the vision or to bring your organization's work back in line with it. So one way of thinking about a CLT's vision is in terms of the words community, land, and trust. You don't have to do it this way, but it can be kind of a helpful first step to ensure you're covering your bases and really connecting your vision to what a CLT is. So thinking about community, what community is your CLT working within? Who are you representing? Where? What identities? What lived experiences? Then think about land. What type of land are you aiming to hold as a CLT? For what purpose? What do you want people to be doing with it? What goods benefit will be delivered by having that land owned by community? And then trust, why this model and what's the aim of it? And this also often means a mention of housing affordability, long-term, assets being affordable in perpetuity, housing being protected, etc. There are really kind of endless approaches that you can take to develop a vision. So many different activities, and you can look it up. There's a lot of stuff online about it. But there are kind of some standard ones or some good places to start. Of course, you can start with just good old-fashioned brainstorming, and a lot of good can come out of this. Brainstorming with your core group or a broader, engaged group on questions like, why does what we do matter? Why us? What impact do we want to make? What is our most ambitious goal? And what would our community look like if we achieved that goal? There are other activities like likes and dislikes. You can look at different vision statements and talk about what you like and don't like about them, what's inspiring about them, what do you think could be stronger. You can think about a hopeful headline. So that's brainstorming an ideal headline you'd like to see about your CLT's work, years and years down the road from now. There's a whole process called Naming the Moment, and I linked to it here. It's a series of questions around identifying interests, naming issues, assessing forces, and planning for action. This is really useful, especially if you're combining your visioning with developing a strategic plan. This is a really good way of figuring out your CLT's vision and strategies. Now, I have some examples of American CLT's visions, and you can see that each one has approached what a vision is a little differently, but they all mention what community they're serving and what change they want to make. So for example, Maggie Walker CLT, their vision is the communities of metropolitan Richmond will be inclusive, affordable, and healthy places to live. You'll often have this language of will be, will become in a vision, because again, this is future looking. You're aspirational. You're saying this is what will happen when we, carry out our work over the long term. Another example is Wandio Community Land Trust. They say the Wandio community, along with suburban Ramsey County, so they're naming the geographic area, has an adequate supply of high-quality, permanently affordable housing choices for low and moderate income multi-generational households as a result of the Wandio CLT. So they're talking about what households, what kind of housing. I wanted to give an example of Upper Hammonds Plain CLT. They're kind of in the early stages of determining their vision and strategies. They are an early stage community land trust. I'm gonna cut this. Here's an example of a mission, vision, values framework. You can kind of pull all of these things together into a framework or a one-pager that'll briefly explain what your CLT does and why, kind of your elevator pitch. Here's an example from Muskoka Community Land Trust. Their vision, communities that thrive with social, economic, environmental, and cultural well-being. Their mission is saying how they're doing that. And their values are, these kind of shorter things that they then expand on. Another example is from Parkdale Neighborhood Land Trust. They have a purpose, vision, and values, and they put it all together in a one-pager that they can then share and use that to kind of get people on board, explain to people what they're doing and why. We have a handout that we've developed that's on our website that you can use to, work with your group to develop your vision. It has some of these activities that I mentioned, some examples, and you can kind of use that in a group meeting or workshop to guide your work. And that's the end of this webinar. Thank you so much, and feel free to check out the other webinars on our website as well.